Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this board meeting of Ebbsfleet Development Corporation. We are recording this available on our website. Meeting. If you are watching it, we have done that. I would like to welcome. We have a member of the public with us. We're always very keen that if people do come along and participate in the part of our business here. We'd encourage you to do that. Have a transparent arrangement here, and people have a clear understanding about what we're doing in development. I would also like to welcome Parvej A, who is our third boardroom apprentice. I'm going to ask you just to say a couple of words about yourself before we move forward. But before I do that, we participate in that in order to try and help bright young talent to get boardroom experience, to give them an opportunity to go on boards or to advance their careers. So we have had two previous board apprentices, and Parvej, you are also local, which is fantastic. So welcome, and perhaps you just want to say a couple of words about yourself.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, I'm very glad to be here. It's, for me, there is a personal connection because my local vicinity. I don't come from a town planning background. I come from a financial services and consulting background, and perhaps more relevant to this, I was involved in a programme of activity to take over the UK National Lottery via Allwyn, who is my current employer, which operates lotteries across Europe.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's great to have you on board. We hope you get a lot out of the experience of being board apprentice here, and it's, I think, particularly good that you are local to the area, so you can bring those local perspectives into that. We'd ask you, feel free to participate or openly all our activities here. Moving on, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Kite and Councillor Murphy today.
All right, okay. There is any idea they're busy? I think there's a potential sort of Kent devolution announcements that may have got a little bit of their attention. But John has a gold star here because John is with us.
I suspect the meeting there is of Conservative group leaders.
All right.
Decide there as opposed to Kent leaders.
Got you.
Which won't be listening much to what they've got to say.
Okay, got you. All right. But normally they're very good participants, so it's rare that they're not with us. Fred, you are virtually with us there. You can see you there, Fred. Any declarations of interest other than the standard declarations we have for members of our planning committee? Anything else people would like to raise? No. Then we have the part one minutes of our meeting on the 20th of November 24. Very fulsome, detailed as always. Do people have any comments on that, or are they happy to approve them as they're drafted? Great. Okay. So those are agreed. Actions. Ian, is there any particular action you'd like to draw our attention to, or James, coming out of our most recent meeting?
Not really, Simon. The actions log is up to date. There are two actions open, one of which will we have the intention of bringing back to the board in March, and one, as you can see, comes back to the board in May.
Great. Thank you, Ian. All right, then we have our forward plan of meetings and what will be coming to those. It's also available there. People would like to have a look at that. Busy agenda ahead of us in the months to come. That then brings us on to our first piece of business today, which is the Chief Executive's Part 1 update.
Thank you, Simon. So the paper today covers a number of topics, and I will only just add a couple of comments to what's done in the report. It's section 2, just to say that the second stage of the spending review process is underway. We are still waiting for the outcome effectively of the first stage, which is to confirm our allocations for 25-26. We haven't had that formally yet, but we've had to make certain assumptions about the result of that, which we'll come to when we talk in part 2 about that. draft business plan because we had to make certain assumptions. It's also
And rather cheekily, we had of chairs and chief executive bodies with the permanent secretary congratulated the civil service team and all the work they were doing, and also said it would be nice to get our settlement for 2025-26 as quickly as possible because the board would appreciate that. So didn't try and give them a nudge for what were.
As the board are aware, I emailed out. We were asked to make the initial submission as part of the stage 2 process, which is our spending requirements request for the years beyond 25-26. We had to make that in pretty short order. Be a few days, less than a week to do that. As I messaged out to the board, it was very much in line with the request we submitted an outline in August last year. So that has gone in. We now expect there to be further queries through the period up to, I think it's the 25th or 27th of February when the ministry have to submit their bid to Treasury. So we expect some further inquiries through the period. I'd like to add my welcome to Parvesh as well. Thank you. We've met a couple of times already and had some induction and an introduction to the work that we do. So very pleased to see you, and I hope you find the next 12 months useful and informative. Section 4, just wanted to really draw the board's attention to the work that we've been doing on our public sector quality duty. You'll recall that we commissioned work following the Court Effectiveness Review. That was quite a thorough piece of work across the organisation at how we are meeting our duty, what more we can do to be effective in that respect. Came out with a number of recommendations, as you've seen, and as an executive team, we've taken that on. We've turned that effectively into an action plan and are addressing those recommendations into 4.3, just to give you an example of a number of the recommendations that were made that resulted in actions that we've already addressed in whole or in part. It gives you a flavour of the sorts of the things that we're now dealing with and tackling. So I think that was a very useful piece of work that was done for us, very thorough. It's really important that we take that on, we embed that into our day-to-day work. So section 5 is the quarterly performance report, and you've got a detailed annex which sets out an update on our achievements against the corporate priorities. And there's an annex which gives you our tracking against the actual KPIs themselves. So quite a lot of information there. Section 5 in my paper just brings out some of those highlights, including the 225 new homes that were completed across the development in Q3. And as you'll read from later reports, Mark's report, where we're at and against the annual target. So we're doing extremely well. It's quite likely that we'll exceed the annual target of 620. But you can also see at 5.3 that takes us to 4,814 homes. So now within very short distance from the 5,000, which was actually the target in the current corporate plan up to March 25. So let's talk about when we talk about the corporate plan in more detail over the coming weeks. I think that's a huge achievement because it's a bit early on in the plan period. 5,000 quite a stretch. When COVID hit and the outturn dropped somewhat. So you can see some other highlights there. And at 5.4, just to note one of the business plan actions that we won't need hit this year is in respect to Northfleet at least, but Simon has reminded us in the past sometimes not achieving something for good reasons, why reasons is there we have circled back and done some more due diligence and in the process of doing that to make sure that business case when it comes forward is as robust as possible. You could see the following annexes the report. So happy to take any questions on any of those items, including the.
Yes, board. Any observations, thoughts, comments? Yes, Mary.
Quick observation to it. One is about the spending review, and thanks for responding so positively. I mean, I do think it's a credit both to you, Simon and Ian, that we spend so much time in the way doing those, so prioritising, look at all the developments that we're able to do that so quickly. So thank you for the foresight. Excuse me. I think qualities. I just suddenly thought, gosh, we're now doing this work, which is absolutely great, of course, around EDI in relation to the board, but we don't ever talk about it in relation to the organisation. And I don't know what the makeup, for example, of staff to be where it's covered. So I've missed it, sorry.
We do have information, and we, James, behind you. Are we able to include information?
So we collect obviously equalities and diversity forms for all recruitment exercises, sort of analyse that. We don't have specific information about the staffing of the organisation. It's not something we've decided to collect. It's something we could look at, but not something we've actually done so far.
Thank you. But are you content as the chief executive?
About our
Yes.
diverse, yes,
Thank you.
not a board.
Not a board, yeah. So
Agreed, yes, but as the organisation.
board, we have struggled despite previous housing ministry delivered enhanced diversity up to recommendations for board appointments, but that not being approved. But anyway, such as the frustrations of trying to achieve board diversity. But we must do more. Any other comments? Yes, Simon.
Just help very quick one. So in terms of the action plan, would that be able to be circulated in correspondence?
Yeah, we can do that. If
Just so we
you'd
can,
like to see that, yeah.
certainly I would, yeah. So I don't know whether other board members would as well, but if we circulate that in correspondence. And just the only other one was just a thanks for taking up my suggestion of looking at the work that LLDC have been doing on making space for women and girls.
Yep.
So thank you for taking that forward and looking at that in terms of how that can fit into our own priorities and guidance.
No, well, and thank you for the heads up. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Board, any other? I'm just going to come in with a couple of quick comments. Then, our 24-25 corporate performance update, just to absolutely drive the nail home here. There's red with preparation and submission of the full business case for Northfleet Bank and East, having obtained planning permission and achieving REBA stage 4 design. That is red, but that is because effectively we have all put the challenge into the costs associated with that. Hopefully improve the business case of that. So it's trying to improve the use of public money, I think is certainly provide the challenge to ensure that we're getting better use of public money is never a bad thing given the importance of our role as directors. So I think that is what I would call a good miss there. And then there are two ambers, which one is the strategic outline case for health and wellbeing hub, and the other is strategic outline case or business case for the Northfleet water facility with Southern Water. I believe in both of those cases, the reason for not having hit a timetable because of information external parties associated with it. So to an extent, we are in their hands to advance things. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Nice
I can
to
only
basis.
speaking for the health and wellbeing hub, where we've needed inputs from others, we've made assumptions with them now. And I think as we noted, it's amber because we'd have done some of it, but we won't have we won't have progressed the way forward because we'd only just prepared it. And then we're looking to bring it forward into it now, just into next year. Because we need to make sure we had all those inputs to put together something that we felt was a credible case to place.
And certainly on Southern Water, Simon, that applies. I essentially parked resources for the best part of 12 months. We've just re-established communications with them now. We've got proposals to take things forward.
Thank you. So, in certain cases, you're dependent on external agencies and partners. Yeah, Neil.
Just on the KPIs, which we've got, table 2, just notice that where we're not on target is on commercial and community floor space. But I just wanted to note that on the community floor space, we are on target. It's the commercial in the Henley building. And I know that the community at large are concerned about the amount of community floor space. So I was just going to note that, and also ask that we note that we're looking forward to delivery of other community buildings, Ebbsfleet Green and so on. So although there is a not on target, it's something that certainly I am concerned that we do deliver on community floor space, and I think we are.
There's a strong pipeline of work which is going on. Yeah, absolutely. That should be reflected in next corporate plan.
Yeah, just as I think I'm right in saying, Mark, that the Henley building is community space. It is community space. It's relatively small. It is absolutely called the floor area, but it's pretty small, and it's forecast for this calendar year. So it's 141 square meters. So it says it. So it's relative. Yes, thank you, Neil. It does. Thank you.
All right. Board, any other comments on that paper? It's just for noting. Right, we will note that. Thank you. Caroline, with your new name, surname, Alexander here. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Not that new for you, but anyway.
Well, I did have to be reminded by James to change it, so it's still taking some time to do.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Marketing and communications.
Yes, so I'll take the paper as read. A couple of points just to cover over, particularly picking up post-Christmas, in which we saw an expected decline over particularly our website and press, which is standard across the industry and platforms, particularly over the festive period. So this month we're continuing to plan for the new financial year and what the kind of calendar of comms activities looks like for us for 2025. So as covered in the paper, really our focuses are on the relaunch, if you will, of the green map. That's kicking off as we head into spring. We have planning in place for, we are planning for a tree planting event taking place in February, engaging with local community members. We've got a fantastic event coming up this weekend, actually, the Winter Lights Festival. So we've been focusing on promotion for that and onboarding a new photographer who is a resident of Ebbsfleet, who is going to kind of help us curate some new images of all of the light installations that will take place during the festival. I'm sure Kevin's paper will cover the particulars of that event in more detail. We're also assisting with the digital promotion of new community board members, so particularly focusing on ensuring that we get well-rounded representation of residents. That's a project, if you will, that has been really championed by a little working group within the community board, who have really helped steer and take ownership of the direction of that recruitment. We're just certainly supporting on the digital elements of that. And as you know, as we've already met this morning, a lot of hard work has gone into kind of progressing with the brand and visioning for Ebbsfleet Central. And as we look towards February, we'll be taking forward the project into the next work streams, starting to consider the communications, PR and brand creation approach, which is really bringing all of the items that we discussed earlier and the work that we've done to date to light, and looking at how we can kind of package that in a holistic, well thought out brand. So that's really a whistle-stop tour. As I said, I'll take the paper as read, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Caroline, thank you. Board, yes, John.
I don't obviously want to go through all the games. I wasn't there this morning, so I don't want to make you go through the joy of doing the whole thing again. But will there be a briefing note as to the sort of things you discussed and the outcomes?
Yeah, of course.
I just need that to bring myself up to speed on where you think you are going to be going.
Yeah, so what I would propose, I have not said this to Ian yet, is that we'll bring it back in a part 2 with kind of comments for discussion, subject to kind of the notes and revisions that we'll make based off of earlier. So there will be opportunity for those who weren't involved in the engagement session this morning to still have sight of that.
Perhaps we could give you a little heads up, some job.
Yeah.
3 local authority representatives, 2 who aren't here. Well, with 3 who weren't at it, you know, a little bit of a heads up of what was discussed there. Yeah.
Perfect.
We missed you. We would have liked you there.
It was probably good for you for us not being there, so you could focus on what you do.
Well, we didn't want to charge ahead too much without knowing that the people who are elected locally representing the community endorse it. So your view is very important to us. So but we'll get a summary.
Whilst we're here.
Simon Shankland, of course.
I did. John's got me Welsh. All right. Okay. Any other comments? Board on this? That is for noting. Aaron, thank you very much. Yeah. Great. Mark, talk us through how you convinced us to have too low a housing target yet again. Why don't we go through your planning, design and delivery report?
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, so the usual update from me, section 1 with the development side. So yeah, a lot of work going on at the moment around the temporary school application. So that's still forecast to be opening in September. So that's 5 classes of year 7 students in Alkerdon.
Can I just,
of course.
Okay. What is the nature of that? Are those porter cabins? What facilities will they have? What sporting facilities? Just to
there's a certain there's an outside space that they would have access to in an artificial pitch. There's also a small pavilion that gets built as part of the permanent scheme that they would have access to for changing facilities, and then there would then be the classroom spaces then within temporary.
But they're pretty high quality from
Yeah, absolutely.
My interaction with them.
We would obviously only expect them to be there for a year, and then the permanent school will then be open from September 26.
Thank you.
Other work going on, phase 3 Ashmere with Countryside and the Grove Road fast track scheme with Bellway. One point just to note, I have noted that the Rocherville school down at Cable Wharf that was previously planned to be September 25 opening, KCC are now forecasting to be early 2026. That can open mid-year because it's an existing school relocating. So whereas other schools will open at particular times, they are quite confident in doing that between the different academic years. Housing numbers update in section 2. So as Ian mentioned, a strong Q3 performance. So we're at 618 and the business plan number is at 620. So as I sort of mentioned, we're sort of generally forecasting probably around 640 to 650 homes.
And last year we were
at 680.
680,
we are starting to do some work looking at longer term forecasting. Obviously need to do KPI setting for next year shortly, and I'm trying to look ahead towards the rest of the plan. Periods to be looking towards 2030. As the papers identified, we have done some work looking at which developments are up and down. Ashmere seems to be performing incredibly well, so that's good. And there are other areas where, as I say, approximately Gary, we were previously forecasting completion this year, but that will now complete in a few months' time. So it's difficult to get an overall trend of that. Just different sites just seem to be performing slightly differently. But when I talk to the developers in terms of risks, generally sort of similar feedback from them. As I sort of mentioned just after that in the paper, things around labour materials seem to have sort of been resolved. Main concerns seem to be around interest rates, mortgage products, options to lend, and things like that. So, and that generally seemed to be across. Planning committee, thank you to Neil for having 3 days with me interviewing candidates for the committee roles. We did that process last week, and we had 2 good candidates to sort of put forward for each of those for the community role and for the professional role. So we'll be putting that up to the Secretary of State for approval shortly. And the only other thing, just to probably highlight 4.2. We had a live decision on the cost claim in relation to the London Resort DCO. That came through, and obviously our claim was put in with KCC and Dartford because we did the joint work with them. So I'm in discussions with those organisations and what to do next. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, Neil.
First of all, well done on facilitating all the housing completions. Really good figures, particularly in the light of what's going on generally. So I think we should be really pleased with that. And hopefully that will continue. Could I just ask about quality? Because quality, from my point of view, is really important throughout the Garden City. And I noticed that, well, luckily Jeremy isn't here, otherwise he told me I misunderstood the arrow. You've now
I put improving.
I know, it's made it much better, much easier. So it's improving, but I noticed that you say that people are coming back and asking to change details. And then it says the planning and design officers continue to negotiate and find solutions for these developers. And I wonder whether you can just explain what type of things people come back on, how you're able to maintain quality.
Yeah, I think we are consistently, I think, getting requests around material changes still. Brick detailing can be quite a common request. I think it's a really interesting discussion point, I suppose, because I think that when we discuss things at committee, we talk about the quality of those schemes. We sometimes talk about the detailing of those materials. The assessments that we put to the committee are obviously based upon assumptions, the information that we have in front of us. But the questions always come in, I suppose, primarily, sometimes because of cost, sometimes because of availability, or whether speed can assist with different bricks being brought forward. Hard landscaping, I suppose, is probably the other common area where there can be consistent questions around that. My view is that we have mechanisms in place to be able to talk about those. So we might be able to prioritise locations where different materials might be more helpful in different locations. We can look at the way in which we might be able to sort of structure sort of part condition discharges, which might assist the developers put different orders in at different stages and different sort of cash flow points. But I think I sort of landed on the point that if there are mechanisms in place to be having those conversations and then to be saying yes or no, then if you look at the mitigation alongside the risk, you then conclude that the risk is lower, and that's why you then have that reduced one. To be frank, that wasn't necessarily, I suppose, fully agreed in the team. I think there are some people in the team who are concerned as to the level of questions that we continually get, but it is generally around external materials of buildings and services. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Valerie.
This asked about quality. Can I ask about quantity? The whole sort of planning landscape is changing. In fact, it would be really great, actually, please, if we could have a board training, a sort of update on all of the things that are changing, the relevant bills that are coming through, the you know, the new amendments to the MPPF, all this sort of thing, because the policy context, the landscape in which we are working is changed quite rapidly, frankly. But the point that I wanted to raise was that, you know, there was much talk, and I haven't had time to catch up. Franz was saying today, but there was a lot of talk recently about Manchester and, you know, intense developments around train stations, transport areas, and here we are, massive train station. I mean, will we be required to increase the numbers of housing that we are predicted to deliver here? Should we be looking at that as an objective? We have got some local plans, but all around we're told 3 million houses are required. It's one of our primary functions. I'm not suggesting we lose the quality of the product and the garden city philosophy. I don't know, what's the pressure on that? Should we be driving it ourselves?
I mean, I think with my sort of, I suppose planning hat on, we obviously assess the applications that get put in front of us. We assess those against the local plans, that they are broadly, site allocations based upon capacity work that's been done previously. Because we don't want to, I suppose, lose an opportunity to use land effectively. We do assessments to ensure that things are not wasting land. I suppose so. For example, when we looked at the quarry, and there is the outline permission for 6,250, we do have an idea as to how those parcels should be treated to be able to allow for that to be reached. At the same time, looking at around what the quality of those spaces should be like. But interestingly, in terms of the market, the feedback we're getting is obviously the apartment market struggling, and that there are different parcels coming forward where there are areas where you might then have lower density coming, because the housing market is then stronger than the apartment market. So fundamentally, from a planning perspective, we are delivering against the local plan, and that will have numbers in. So I think that I absolutely acknowledge government messaging about numbers, but sometimes that does take time to trickle through the system.
Can I perhaps jump in just to discuss the extra dynamic that we've got going on here, because there's a devolution white paper.
Yes.
All around the country, Kent, 2-tier county council districts, both do an excellent job, but they will soon find out in terms of the pace of being brought forward. And clearly the direction of travel is an aggregation of areas to minimum of 500,000 residents, cluster kind of unitaries, then potentially with there are a number of different models, but with an appointed mayor over that. Kent's, I think, the largest county in the country. But I suppose with all that running, there's potential that then people will revisit housing numbers.
Yes,
as part of that.
Yes, potentially.
So within the time frame of, let us say, Ebbsfleet Central, whilst we're busy working on the development platforms, potentially getting into any planning decisions, this could all be revisited. Is it fair? A summary to say that.
Yes, at the point that local government reorganisation would take place, you would certainly expect new local plans to take place, and then in a world where strategic planning is then brought back in, those plans they need to comply with the upper tier. So I suppose that there is always the potential for that, but just to give some sort of comfort that we are at the moment, in terms of the decisions that we're making, trying to ensure that the outline permissions are being usefully implemented rather than necessarily sort of falling short of their potential.
So I suppose, Valerie, and I'll bring John in, within the constraints in the landscape we have at the moment, we're dealing with that appropriately and professionally, but things may all change. John?
Yeah, no, just picking up on the point really, and I agree with Mark that we have to work to the local plans that currently exist and being developed. We're all under pressure to get those local plans in place effectively by June next year. As far as devolution is concerned, there are very active discussions going on at the moment. One guarantee out of that is at the end of the process, there will be no boroughs, districts, county or unitary left. There will be a mayor and there will be a number of unitary authorities in Kent. There is no defined number yet. I think there are various offers on the table from 1 to 5. And nobody's settling around any particular number at the moment. So it's an open debate. But a fundamental thing for all of them will be the local plans, because however they're all set up, they will have to, for a period of time, work to the local plan of the authority they've inherited in that new structure. So it's going to be important that we work within the plans that have been developed. I think going back to your key point there, Valerie, I think one thing in my mind, or FCC, that's why I asked the question earlier about the design meeting earlier, is there's no plan at the moment of layout of different potential unitaries where the EDC area sits in the centre of it. So there is no city concept in that sense in the city of any of the potential setups. One or two I've heard puts us on the fringes. Some move us more towards the centre, but never in the centre. I think it's going to be important how we see ourselves set up. The key thing that the area's got is the station. It would be better if it was a international station again.
Yeah.
So if we got behind that argument,
We touched on that earlier. Yeah.
we got behind that argument and got it to be opened up again as an international station. It strengthens the hand of this area as to why you could have more growth. It doesn't sit within the local plans, but it could do as an amendment to it. And I think we also need to sort out how we're going to deal with all the land on the triple SI in a sensible way, working with the local community. There's a lot of land there that's not down, was down, but now not going to be down for development if we're not careful. So I think I'm not a fan of just seeing everything going high up in the air. But ultimately, if you can't go down, you can't go out, you've got to go up. So I've always argued. So I don't see much scope for additional numbers here. I think we've got to start working actively more with Dartford and Gresham in what their plans are going forward and the development they've got coming that can influence what we can offer to our package. But the key thing is opening up that station again.
Yeah,
that changes the whole thing about. Otherwise, we're just a big development site. If you've got an international station there,
Sorry.
the scope for it is so much better.
Well, we also touched on the fact that competition down HS1 into the continent, would potentially logically enhance the possibility of getting a reopening here. So that would be good to see that happen. But thank you very much, John. Good luck with all of that. It'll be fun. Any other comments on the report?
Just add a
please.
quick observation. I'm sure board members will have picked this up, but you'll know that we track as part of Mark's dashboard the homes that are started but not completed. It's a good early indicator of forward numbers, and so I would always encourage people to look at that because that's a good early indicator of the likely completions. And as you can see from that, it's still tracking along quite healthily. At the end of December, January was 685. So we do look at that, and that, as I say, it's a really important indicator of future completions.
So the pipeline remains reasonably strong. Nick,
Could you talk about, in terms of the pipeline, which goes back to the sort of densification as to what is really coming forward? Is it mansion blocks, or is it terraced houses, or is it single dwellings? What's the balance currently? In a mansion block, is it 8 to a core, 6 to 4 stories? Are we avoiding BSA?
I think because
issues, etc.
Because there are the multiple outlets going, you almost get a different, you do get quite a good range because there were different products coming through on different sites. That number would include the large apartment blocks that are under construction down at Cable Wharf. So those are substantial apartment buildings. It would also include a collection of family homes that are going to be marketed as a privately rented product over at Alcott. Generally, the developers are wanting to come forward with greater numbers of homes, greater numbers, I suppose, of 2, 3, 4 bed homes, rather than necessarily, we've had some 5-bedroom homes in the past. Apartments continue to be a struggle on the market. But yeah, different developers are providing different products. So I don't think it's skewed one particular way.
Yes, Neil.
Just on our discussion on the consequences of devolution deal and how it would affect Ebbsfleet. We don't know until the decisions are made, but on planning at the moment, we are not a place where people are saying, well, there's a shortfall in housing land supply, therefore you've got to allow lots of housing and you have to give up on quality. So that's not the position we're in at the moment. Wouldn't want us to be in that position because the quality is, I think, extremely important. If we move to, we're within a unitary authority area, that unitary authority will have to come up at some stage of the local plan and will be allocating housing numbers around. At that stage, and it may be so far into the future that it's not an immediate concern, the corporation and whoever's running it at the time could be under pressure. And one option, not saying we should do this, but we shouldn't put off the table, is applying to be our own plan making authority in the way that the Mayoral Development Corporations in London. So I think I just raised that because that's something to keep on the table in case we get put under undue pressure. We've got a very good delivery record. Hopefully that will continue. But we've also got a good quality record to maintain.
I agree. I think it's quite well made there, Neil. John?
The only thought I'd have on that idea is I'd be careful highlighting the area too much in that context. At the moment, there is, in government circles, I believe there's support for development corporations, a number coming through. I think there's some local concern about this development corporation. What you say about the, it's actually, everything being done in this area has almost been done in isolation, I suggest to you, from your neighbourhoods, from Dartford and Gresham. You're not part of Dartford and Gresham. You as a body, I'll be honest, I've said it before, almost acting like a body in your own right, just ignoring everything around you. And because of that, you've not had the pressure on housing numbers. If you came to Gresham, I can only talk about there, we've got over 2,000 on our waiting list. We've got 200 in overnight B&B, and it goes on from there. We're taking housing numbers down from London, which we're trying to push back on. So that's, Dartford's got similar problems. But you're not feeling that problem here because you are government sponsored, government enabled, government funded, and you're not part of any electoral system that you need to worry about. Once you start becoming a plan making body and start putting your head above the parapet, then I think the situation might change. I know it will change. I'll definitely make sure it changes. From my perspective, I'm still in round because I am not satisfied that the EDC really reflects the needs of the local people, the population. And when you're talking about scale, and by scale, you're not being forced to go up in the air too much. I've got a scheme north of here, which we don't talk about. Hopefully we'll go through shortly. A number of blocks up to 15 stories, about 3,000
apartments, effectively. I've got a building in my town centre permitted, 24 stories, all flats. And the block alongside it is 14 stories. So that's where the understanding what's happening locally isn't being fed necessarily into the pressures you're experiencing. If you want to experience the pressures, fine. I'd like that.
Well, you make a good point there, John, particularly with the ONS projecting about the significant multi-million increase in population
But
by 2035.
But in our defence, because that was an attack, we have inherited 15,000 square homes under existing planning consents, which we cannot change. And I mean, there is a thought in that context as to what one should think about that, but actually that is the restriction Development Corporation has. What it has done fantastically well is make all of that planning system for those going for outlines to reserves and being converted into completions. It's done tremendously well, and it's number one in MHCLG's sites. So that complex is written, and the bit that we have under our own ownership, central, is really quite constrained, and the SSI removed a vast amount of that flex you might otherwise have anticipated for significant densifications. There is some logic.
I think I need to come back on that, Richard. The emphasis you had is 15,000 homes.
Yes.
15,000 homes. I'm not interested in this bit of community purely for travelling to London for work. It's got to be a community where you ideally got jobs, futures here, schools here. That's not hasn't really been a focus. We're changing the focus, I get that. But we need more of a focus on the commercial elements, jobs, employment, not just homes. We need the homes, but we also need jobs local. So they're not going on the trains which are overpopulated,
which is
or
what
the roads are overpopulated.
The central is about to be, is to actually have people coming here for work.
And actually, it's a shame you weren't in the earlier session, because very much that is part of the pillars of branding strategy for that, just what you've been talking about. But you made some fantastic points there. And I'm sure if Jeremy Kite were here, he'd be saying, no, we don't want to get greater density, there's no more homes. Yeah, so, such as democracy.
But also
Central
is something to actually connect, should be something to connect us logically to the community around. That was a big theme that came out of the discussion that we had. So it's not a them and us situation, but it seemed to be, central is seen to be something that is fundamentally behind this corporation into what's been to the pressures that you're talking about around.
So, right, status quo isn't on the menu, as they say. Valerie, did you want to come back in with another point?
Just a quick one, really. I think one of the reasons perhaps that you spoken the way you have is that actually our core brief was different at the outset, because we are charged with the responsibility of building a garden city, which is a very different ethos. But I do think the point that you make is really well made about the changing geography around us. And certainly this corporations are going to go on forever. I think we do need to be 100% satisfied ourselves that the connectivity, the permeability, the relationship from, if you like, this, forgive me, administrative boundary, and then when it disappears, how it relates, not just in governance terms, but in terms of how it's integrated and work. We really do need to consider that, because it's such a key part of delivering a viable legacy.
I think the problem for both Jeremy and I is we were with the board, the EDC, at its inception. When it was first being set up, before it went through Parliament, we sat in Home Office with civil servants from government agreeing the terms and the areas and the red line areas. That's why you've got some quite bizarre red line areas coming integration. Because I wanted those areas included to bring the delivery forward. But it did create a problem with EDC, which I don't think really, I was hoping it would be a way of forcing the integration of
the scheme into the community.
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked. Because there are cliffs there, which
Yes.
aren't easy to overcome.
We discussed that earlier as well, the importance of linking into communities which have been here for a significant period of time. So we're batting hard for your views early on. A couple of points just to come through as we conclude on this. You'll see in our overall housing numbers, 1,296 affordable homes completed, so 27% of those completions which have taken place. What are the local policies? They
we're going to test it out. So it's 35% for Dartford.
Yeah.
I think you were 30% in Gravesham, but because the consents were granted at different stages, different planning permissions have different requirements. So it isn't one solution fits all, and it isn't the same tennis splits on different sites either.
but good overall affordable
Absolutely.
delivery.
Yes.
Yeah. And then just to circle back in 4.2 to would be a Pyrrhic victory. This one, the full recovery of full costs, and certainly in order to pay costs, the entity that would have to pay that, I don't believe has any financial substance to them.
That's what our understanding is. Absolutely. So good decision.
We've got the right decision. We're not going to see any money.
And I'm just to manage board's expectations. Yes, absolutely.
What was the award? There was a cost of the three entities, wasn't there?
There was the award itself granted or sort of concluded on a particular stage, so it doesn't cover all of our costs from the original work. Right. When I looked at it the other day, it was definitely north of $500,000 across the three organisations. I'd have to.
It's been wound up, isn't it? Paramount to be successful. Can I thank you, Gerard? We're not carrying this in our.
No, we disclosed it as a note in our annual report account, but in section 8, my report later, there is one small invoice that we did raise to LRCH that we are seeking to get board's permission to write that off.
Okay, so we've got the moral high ground, but we're not going to see much. All right. Okay, good. I don't think there are any other comments on, like lots of others actually. Any other comments on this? Otherwise, I think this is for noting. Great work on the delivery. Please thank all of our partners and organisations on the line when you see them, Mark.
Yep.
Thank you. Right. Ebbsfleet Living. Very much. Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'll take the papers read. I'll just pull out sort of 3 highlights from the last 6 weeks, if that's okay. Firstly, just to highlight the huge range of Christmas activity that we had delivered over the season. In particular note this year is a number of new groups, community-led groups who've led that delivery. We have a new Ebbsfleet Green Events Committee who delivered a Christmas market, as well as the Ebbsfleet Events Committee, and Springhead Eastgate delivered an event there as well. The Ebbsfleet Voices local choir has now been popping up all over the region in the summer period, including Bluewater. The particular note was the Christmas Carol service led by the Baptist Church and the Salvation Army in partnership with a number of other groups, including the choir, who went to 4 different venues across the geography in new and existing communities, and also included input from the schools at the local area, Rusherville Primary School, Ebbsfleet Green School and Cherry Orchard School. So it was a real collaboration of local skills, local people coming together to deliver all of those events, which was really, really encouraging. Many of them did have funding from the Ebbsfleet Garden City Trust. So again, the trust is really helping these groups to kind of form and deliver. So all in all, despite Storm Dara and lots of weather challenges over the season, we had a really vibrant Christmas here. And it's great to see it popping up, not just in the established communities, but in those new communities like Cable Wharf and Ebbsfleet Cross as well. Second one, just to bring your attention to, was the Bollywood event, which was held by the Creative Exchange Culture Group. And just to remind you, that group is part funded by ourselves and part funded through the Arts Council. And that's a number of local residents, almost 30 in the group, who are getting capacity training through Blueprint Arts and others to build and deliver their own events. So the Bollywood event was something they designed themselves and delivered themselves. Over 37 local people are involved in that particular event. And that also sort of reflects the significant diversity of the population that's moving to Ebbsfleet, that they've chosen to have that Bollywood feature. And again, they'll be looking for other events to just again celebrate that diverse culture moving forward. So they were both very, very encouraging. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight some of our employment and skills work, particularly the Building Future Skills course, which we held in this building again over December with students from across secondary schools in the local area coming to learn about skills in the built environment. A really well attended event. You can see pictures of them that are going to see Alcott Academy being constructed. So a real exciting opportunity for generally sixth form students to really get involved in what the opportunities in Ebbsfleet and building skills, particularly with that. And finally, really just to highlight, if anyone's in the local area this Saturday, one of the highlights of the calendar in Ebbsfleet is the Magical Winter Festival, which will be held in Platinum Jubilee Park this Saturday afternoon when it gets dark. So,
well done, Kevin. So, board, any comments, observations on that?
Love the Bollywood dancing photos. Brilliant.
There's a tremendous amount of work here. Are we really building capacity and capability for these community organisations which will last and endure? That's, I think, important. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously our main focus, and our ambition is to build that capacity. In our placemaking budget in the year ahead, almost a third, 40% of that in each of the programmes is about capacity building and training, developing a volunteers framework, because we can see there's not enough volunteering happening locally, and also building more skills in local people. It is a marathon, not a race. The design group that did the Bollywood events, a really good example. It's taken them 2 years and quite a lot of hand-holding to get to the extent that they felt able to deliver the event. However, that is also facilitated through Blueprint Arts, or a local arts organisation who applied for the funding. So it's still not to the point that local groups kind access or apply for funding themselves, but they are building capacity, a little bit hand-holding in those early days with people like Blueprint, with the view to then letting them run themselves in the future. Some of those ones that I mentioned that were funded through the Ebbsfleet Garden City Trust, again, are really good examples of residents with small amounts of seed funding being able to deliver those market events, which is encouraging. Ebbsfleet Boys and the Christmas Carol service, when it becomes a bigger event, it does take more professional people to help them deliver it. So that's why some of the church groups, Salvation Army, Baptist Church, are taking the lead, but bringing in many schools and many other people as well. So over time, I think if you compare us to other new developments, I think there's an extraordinary amount of community development here. I think our last year's resident satisfaction survey saying over 80% of people thinking it's a strong sense of place here is encouraging. And without giving you too much on the resident satisfaction survey results for this year, which you'll be seeing in the board strategy day, there's definitely an upward trajectory of people saying they've attended events and activities in this area. But we do take your point that we need to build that capacity and work with the trust so that they can take on this work beyond the lifetime of the corporation. But most importantly, it is building the capacity in the future.
Yes.
Picking up on what you made about legacy and safe places.
Yes.
In large parts of Southland, there are safe spaces. Retailers who specifically will allow children to come into their retailers and other organisations allow children to come into their places when they're not feeling safe.
Right.
Particularly having regard to crime around school gates and similar on the way home from school. It's a practical solution for a campaign for us to have to create those places.
Right. And is as such, behaviours being experienced by school children within the Garden City?
Well, it's definitely part of our planning, and obviously some of your cues recently has seen it being embedded in our design work, and our design work team have been having workshops with the rest of us. The Young Person's Design Group, the Young Person's Placemaking Group, which we've been funding for the last 3 years, it's interesting, they've almost become the opposite. They're now almost acting as consultants to many of our projects, to advise those projects and how they should be thinking about young people, including girls within that. So for example, the major urban park in Whitecliff did use that young person's design group to advise them a lot on that. And you can see specific spaces for girls, for example, have been emerging from the plans for that. So in some respects, giving those kids the capacity building to have the confidence to talk about, and they've been to visit schemes in London like Elephant Park and other things, they are then able to come back and advise us or advise some of our projects.
And do we have the London equivalent to secure by design?
Secure by design is a requirement, I think.
Yeah, so yeah, we consistently consult the police, and then they consistently comment on secure by design principles. I don't think that very many of the developers get accredited, but it's definitely something that we consider on the reserve license here.
All right, fantastic work as always. Good conversation.
Really tremendous.
Well done. Well done. Gerard, Finance Operations and Programme report.
Thank you, Chair. The report shows the position as at the end of Q3, so as at the end of December 2024. As you know, we get two allocations from MHCLG. We get a revenue allocation and a capital allocation. Section 2 talks about our revenue. We are forecasting that by the end of March, we will be spending circa £7.5 million. So that will be utilising full £6 million from the department, ministry, and £1.5 million of receipts. All the details of that are in Annex A. Some budget lines are a bit up, some are down, but they basically offset so that we are going to come in, we think, just around about the 7.5 million mark. On capital, our forecast for the year has slightly reduced from the previous board paper we presented last time. The current latest outturn is 16.3 million. The explanation of why it's dropped is explained at 3.4. Section 7 of the report just gives an update on some staffing changes and some recruitment that's happening. And as just mentioned previously, I am asking for board approval at Section 8 to write off an invoice that we've got outstanding. It goes back to 2021 that we have been trying to get paid, but unfortunately not. So just slightly above the CEO's delegation level, we might need to review whether that delegation level is perhaps a bit too low. But at the moment, we do need to request board approval to actually write that off and get that out of our books.
All right, thank you very much for that. I think in respect of CEDL expenditure, I think the priority is to spend money well, not as quickly as you can. So, there's again some of the work that's being done around Northfleet Bank East led to delay due to de-risking, trying to get better value for money. Sometimes going slow is the right thing to do for taxpayers' money. Any other comments? Yes, Simon.
A couple of quick ones. So, Gerard, in your programme level risk section, bullet point around receipt of approvals, are there any that we are significantly delayed on due to receipts of approvals currently?
At the moment, we're in an issue on Castle Hill. We're trying to resolve that's back with us, but at the moment, not in a position where it's a concern right at this precise moment.
We had a pretty good run, but Algoden cleared, Ebbsfleet Green got cleared.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had a decent run.
I think the risk is always that you cannot predict the length of time it might be. So
with the new government and settled in now, hopefully, are we seeing sort of things getting through in reasonable time?
The Algoden FBC came through relatively efficiently just before Christmas. The Ebbsfleet Central outline is obviously now in following approval of the board in November. That's going through its journey, but it's still at the ministry level. So I think till it gets up to Treasury, we won't know, and with alignment with spending reviews, we'll make those.
So to IPDC in February.
ISC hopefully is in February, but still waiting dates.
Okay. And the other one was in terms of the 7.4 staffing. What is our churn rate at the moment? Has that increased our churn rate in terms of percentage turnover staff, or is this pretty much in line with what we've seen historically? terms of staff turnover?
It's probably broadly in. We had quite unusually 3 members of staff leave at the end of December, which I've been here 7 odd years. I can't remember that. So that was pretty unusual. But I think when you average out across the year, it's, and of course we are a slightly bigger organisation, so inevitably, but in percentage terms, it's still fairly consistent, and it's still pretty stable.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and the request, the decision there. So we had this slightly strange situation where your delegation is 10,000, the VAT exclusive number is 9,170. There's £1,834 of VAT, making a decision to write off the VAT inclusive amount, but in due course we will recover the VAT. So in reality, our true write-off is 9,170, but just because the way in which our policy is drafted, I guess at this moment in time, writing up the whole thing, but we know we'll get recovery of the VAT. So that's a long, complicated story around that amount of money. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Just to recap, the London Resort.
Thank you.
No recovery for anyone there.
And just to explain, as Gerald and I have been discussing timing for seeking this write-off, I decided to put this in. We've made that sort of decision to commit to put it in it. Then we got the decision for PIN. So we would have still made the same decision. So I think whether or not we got that decision, didn't really change it. But just in case the board members thought it looked a bit odd that we were asking for a write-off, but then PINs.
Yeah, look, no, Ian, it's been clear for a period of time that irrespective of what happened on this claim, there was no money there for anyone. So well and truly bust. All right, so everyone's happy with that decision. I think that concludes that paper. Thank you. Final part 1 paper, development, infrastructure and enabling works. Paul, Jen.
Thanks, Simon. So I'll just take you through a couple of the key updates on the infrastructure projects, starting with item 8, which is Springhead Bridge. So our contractor procurement has concluded and we've awarded the contract to Erith, a local contractor. They've hit the ground running, and as we agreed with KCC, we have road space booked for the February half term, which is when the actual works will be undertaken. So good to get that booked in. Wastewater treatment works. I think I mentioned last time that Southern Water had confirmed that the North Fleet scheme, the growth scheme, was included in the first part of their next AMP. That has now been reaffirmed. We've recommenced discussions with Southern Water over the last couple of months. They've confirmed that they've placed the contract for North Fleet, their statutory upgrade works with Care Construction. And we've undertaken a review of the existing grant agreement to ensure it aligns with the original objectives. There's a change request in part 2 of the report that will request permission to proceed with some further feasibility works on the basis that the scope of the new project still follows two objectives of the original 4. So we'll cover that in part 2. Fast track Bean Tunnel. The main updates on this project are that KCC, unfortunately, they still haven't managed to resolve their challenges over biodiversity net gain. So they're now saying their planning determination will probably slip to February, albeit they have commenced their contractor procurement. ITT went live earlier on this month, so good to get that into the marketplace. And they had a good response to the PQQ they sent out previously. And we continue with our meetings with KCC and the respective legal teams to reach agreement on the combined consolidated legal agreement.
Okay.
Good. Take any questions?
There's lots going on in here. Paul, are there any particular?
Do you want to do Jen's bit first? Or?
Yeah, go on, Jen.
I think the only, other than taking it as read, Simon, the only bit just to sort of highlight to the board was section 6 on Ebbsfleet Green. I've, for the first time ever, included some photos we've had something to show in terms of the progress down on site. Just behind us here on the 2 community buildings that are being brought forward by Redrow with investments for ourselves in terms of enhancing the scope. So whilst you can see from the images the progress, I think over the next month or 2 we'll still see a lot more coming out of the ground with CLT frames, etc., due to be installed, particularly on the neighbourhood house. So I'll continue to put images in the future reports.
Any chance of a bit of drone footage or something like that?
Yeah, I think all these pictures have come from the contractor who are sort of taking the same photos from the same spots every time. But let me see if we can get anything more to enhance it.
Our next board meeting is March.
Yes,
Yeah.
mid-March, yeah.
Wondering might have some like little flowers coming out, buds and whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe some drone footage, see how it's getting on by then. Be nice.
These look like.
They are from best stills from drone, and that's all I had access to.
No, but it's great to get those rather than sort of traipsing over there.
Yeah, understood.
But actually, in that context, it's probably worthwhile us getting the Ebbsfleet drone so that we can be.
Yeah. Okay.
I got with Sharon.
Suggestion of the Ebbsfleet drone. Fred.
Yeah, I've actually dropped my hand. I was going to raise an issue on Springhead, but I think perhaps it's more appropriate for part 2.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that. All right. Any other comments on this paperboard? No? No? All right, great. Thank you very much for that. Paul and Jen, thank you very much for that. As always, we had some good questions came in from members of the public, so responses to those will be put on the EBC website after this meeting, so you'll be able to see them there. And I think that concludes our part of the meeting. I'd just like to thank everyone attending this board meeting. Please join again. We'd love you to have a clear update on what we're discussing and how we're making progress here. So thank you very much.